What's up? I'm back. This segment, we'll talk about liberals and Bill Maher's critique on Islam. But 2 weeks ago, Bill Maher has never really been a fan of Islam. And 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, he had Ben Affleck on the show. And this is probably why I got the attention because he talks like this all the time. But I guess when he was on the show, on his show, interviewing Ben Affleck, and he was probably, he had Ben Affleck as a guest on this panel. He basically said these comments again, you know, Islam and how I guess you could say in the sense that even the moderate Muslims still advocate violence and oppression of women and stuff like that. And, they kind of even secretly don't even mind ISIS if you do it based on polls. And I have to admit, he has his, factually, if you just talk about Islam and Arabia, he's correct. See, this is the difference, but when Westerners sometimes try to understand things, and this is why I always push understanding cultures a lot on my channel. When people hear Islam, they put Arabs, Arabian culture, Islam all together. Arabian culture existed before Islam. In fact, Islam at this point, Indonesia probably has a bigger Muslim population than the whole Middle East put together. And Indonesia is in Asia. So when you understand Islam, you're still talking about even places like Turkey, where Turks are not Arabs. They have a very liberal form of Islam. Indonesia, Malaysia, these are not places that, if you're trying to compare it to Saudi Arabia, it will work. But when people assess Islam, they're not able to make the difference. And it's from really poor research. And, these are guys making millions of dollars, and some of these guys are educated. They're supposed to know better. Because your argument falls short when you ask the average person in the street what's the biggest Muslim populations. They're going to say Arabs, obviously, right? But Asians and Africans probably have more Muslims. And because African Islam kind of more still follows Arabian Islam, that may not work for my argument. But the Asian Islam, for our question, Islam has a different face in Asia. And in a sense, when you're assessing the religion, you have to take the whole Muslim world into account, not just the Arab world. Does the Arab world have certain problems when it comes to women and certain freedoms? Even that's overrated to some extent. We know Saudi Arabia has a problem. We know there are portions of it that have problems. There's no question about it. But I can't even make a generalization and say the whole Arabian world has it, even though it's borderline, right? It is borderline. I do admit, and I would admit that in some ways, sometimes every religion, Islam is included, has to own up to its wrongs if it's done. But then at the end of the day, Christians and Jews don't either, to be honest. And I think every religion has to. So I don't think it's just Islam is the case. I do think, though, that sometimes for the more extremist wings of Islam, they don't take criticism well. But I think at the same time, that's like saying I'm going to go to Protestants who are saying that they're KKK members and I expect them to be liberal. No, they're not going to be. So I think you can assess things on the fringe elements of these societies for a question. And I think in general, even Bill Maher could come up with all the facts he wants to come up with. But I could look at his face and you can tell, no matter what, he doesn't understand there's a difference between Muslim and Arab. Two different things. They're related because the center of Islam culturally has been Arabia for a long time. But most people don't even realize, because, Bill Maher will always say stuff like, they don't read, they're not educated, and you get all these stereotypes. But people don't understand that the whole Western civilization, when Rome fell, who you think resurrected Western civilization? And when they resurrected Western civilization, they had the Sufis and Muslims and Moors. They invited Christians and Jewish scholars to come and debate, or not even just debate, just to share knowledge. Spain and Portugal was far ahead of England and France in the beginning. So when people talk about, Muslims are uneducated, this and that, they're not even historically sound. So now you got historical mess ups and you have cultural mess ups where you don't do the research. And I think when people have these points of view, then they should be held accountable for how good their research is, how good their understanding of the subject they're talking about is. But because the American audience is culturally retarded when it comes to understanding other people's cultures, people like that get away with it. So, till next time, peace.